So RCIS offers insurance protection in all 50 states through a national network of about 3,700 licensed agents. So a large group out there servicing farmers and ranchers. RCIS has a wide range of private product coverages, including a diverse selection of name peril options, supplemental and standalone insurance products, as well as federal crop insurance plans through the United States Department of Agriculture's Risk Management Agency. Together with RCIS agents, these two guys here protect America's farmers and ranchers, and we're very happy to have them. And they are Nick Lewitt, who's a precision ag team lead. So in that role, he's responsible for driving precision agriculture development and implementation for RCIS customers to implement their existing digital agricultural services. He grew up in Perry, Iowa on a third-generation family farm. He has 12 years of crop insurance industry experience with a specialization in digital agriculture. Prior to his current role, Lewitt served as the RCIS Technology Account Manager, Precision Technology Specialist, and Mapping/GIS Product Manager. He's worked across several precision agriculture committees as a former member of Ag Gateway and has past underwriting experience. Lewitt earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from Wartburg College in Waverly, Iowa. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Thank you.
We also have Cameron Jadlowski, who's a precision ag specialist for the RCIS. He's responsible for working with crop insurance agents and farmers from the eastern half of the United States to oversee the adoption of precision ag reporting for crop insurance. In his role, he oversees precision ag programs from a boots on the ground approach for customers from North Dakota all the way out to the East Coast. Jadlowski grew up on a third generation family livestock farm in rural Illinois, and he spent 7 years, or he has 7 years of precision agriculture experience with a specialization in crop insurance. So thanks for joining us, Cameron. And I want to thank both of you and your families for being strong agricultural families and generational farms. And with that, I'm going to turn it over, I think, to you, Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Andrew, on that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Always fun to see our agent base here, our RCIS employees here, and of course, farmers that can be on the call as well. We're going to visit a little bit today about our unique partnership with Climate FieldView and RCIS. We're really excited and honored to be here today. I'm going to kick us off and talk a little bit about kind of acreage reporting as well here. For crop insurance and the federal crop insurance program, farmers are required to report their acres to their crop insurance agents in order to have that as well there throughout the crop insurance cycle. So talking a little bit about that and visiting kind of on our unique partnership with Climate FieldView, there is a little bit of technology requirements that are needed first, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into those. The first type of technology that a producer does need is the display or monitor. You know, the display or the monitor is the brain of the tractor. This brain of the tractor functions and really just operates the machinery as well there. It can be any type of display as long as it's integrated with our next thing that's required, which is a GPS receiver. So again, we have to have that GPS receiver. It's so critical in order to geospatially pinpoint so we can then locate that acreage information and put that into our common land units for a correct acreage report of that. So again, that's got to be integrated within the display as well there in order to geospatially track that information. And the last thing that's going to be needed is a satellite subscription. Now, it can be the free satellite subscription such as WAS, or it could be the Cadillac of satellite subscriptions such as RTK. It doesn't really matter which one specifically it is, but there has to be some type of satellite subscription within that GPS as well there. One thing that's really, really critical for farmers to understand when utilizing Climate FieldView and RCIS's direct connection, users must collect as applied planting data and as harvested data as compared to being able to go in and just physically manually planting fields like that. By capturing the correct geospatial data, integrated with the display, a GPS receiver, and some type of satellite subscription, that really makes sure that we're utilizing the correct acres for their crop insurance reporting needs and they're appropriately covered as well. So really important for farmers to understand that, hey, there is some technology requirements, but thankfully our partners at Climate FieldView have came up with a really unique thing called the Climate FieldView Drive. A lot of our farmers have this as well here. My twin brother is actually a farmer and works on my family's farm as well. So because of that, he actually utilizes the Climate FieldView Drive in every single one of his 3 tractors and has it in every single one of his combines as well. He actually moves it to other combines as well throughout the day and other partners he has in order to collect all of his information. That Climate FieldView Drive allows, as long as it's integrated with that GPS receiver, to capture that geospatial data there, and it makes it suitable for crop insurance reporting. A little bit of technology requirements. However, a lot of our farmers at RCIS and across the nation are really, really familiar with this technology and are already implementing it on their farms. Digging a little bit deeper into why farmers want to leverage this technology for acreage reporting, especially through Climate FieldView. The biggest thing that really jumps out is often the inaccuracies we see from our friends at the FSA office as it pertains to drawing out their fields. They can't be as accurate as oftentimes as our technology is, just due to the amount of GPS satellite subscriptions some of our farmers have. So the first benefit in understanding this is that farmers are only going to pay premium on the acres that they actually plant. Now that gets me really excited. I remember one of my first years in the crop insurance industry, and I was working with a farmer who was utilizing Climate FieldView from Southern Illinois. He was looking over his acreage report, talking with me, visiting about it here, and he's like, Cameron, do you realize what this is? And I was like, what? He's like, I am saving so much money on my planted acres. This is the equivalent of a truck payment. So imagining and understanding that there, it's a really big benefit to our farmers, and they can actually see saving money in terms of their crop insurance premium there. Again, really cool and really, really powerful as well there. Additionally on that, the other acreage reporting benefit is if we do see a decrease in planted acres in the field, we're going to see a potential increase in their APH. We've got an example about this as well there, and we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of building up that APH, especially as it pertains to claims time when that may happen as well, and to help mitigating that risk. Additionally as well, during acreage reporting, farmers get really, really busy. But utilizing this technology, especially through Climate FieldView, it really streamlines getting that acreage report information to their crop insurance agent. I work with a group of farmers and agents out in North Carolina. They love this technology for that because they can go pull their precision ag information and report it to their crop insurance agent crop by crop by crop, instead of waiting to go to the FSA office and certify at the last minute as we butt up against that July 15th deadline. We have crop insurance agents that actually pull by specific crop. So they do all the corn, get that signed, they do all the cotton, they get that signed, all the peanuts, and then all the soybeans as well there, and they're well done before that July 15th deadline. By streamlining that information, it's a really big benefit to farmers and a really, really powerful tool for Climate FieldView to help them out there. And last but not least, because we can streamline getting information to the crop insurance agent, we can also help them at the farm service agency as well, and helping them certify their acres as well there. We're going to visit a little bit that on as well, and some of our specific success stories we have. One thing we love to talk about is the loss adjustment determination of acres. Now we go to our crop insurance handbook and our crop insurance loss adjustment manual in order to understand this language as well here. We talk about it in every single presentation we do with Precision Ag because it's so important to understand. In 2012, the RMA and the loss adjustment manual got updated as it pertains to utilizing precision ag technology within their language. So when we call this out and we look at the acreage measurements, it must be determined and made by one of the three ways. And number one that's called out is the AIP approved Precision Farming Technology Systems Planner Monitor records. Those are the equivalent of AIP measured acres. So what does that actually mean? That specifically means that we can use precision ag planting data in order to verify acres as it pertains to any type of review that might be needed, or in the case of a claim as well there. By being able to utilize all of this information, it really, really helps our farmers leverage their technology as well as be accurate as it pertains to their appropriate record keeping through their farm management system. This is something that this is something that's really changing in the industry as well here. So we talk about this and we visit on this quite a bit because it's important to understand that we do not have to utilize our farm service agency documents in order to verify acres. We can use these precision ag information as it pertains to crop insurance. Looking at some of our specific examples here, when we look at a yield example here, if FSA has 80 acres, well, Precision Ag has 75, across the same amount of bushels of 8,000 bushels, we see a 6 bushel per acre increase as well there. So again, being able to increase those in good times and good numbers as well there. By building up that APH, we also help the farmer as well in terms of loss time in order to potentially having a more of an indemnity as well there because they're building up those APHs. So it's really important to understand that, and really, really powerful tool for our farmers because they can build up those APHs. So in years they do have losses, they can make sure they're properly covered. Additionally, we talked about that truck payment example or the premium savings as well here. In this case, with our general rule of thumb, if there's 1,000 acres at the FSA office, there's generally about 3% less acres. So say we take, in this example, 970. The cost per acre of that crop insurance, it's $20. We're going to go with that there just to make the math easy. We could see a premium savings of $600. Now, I understand that $600, that could be a truck payment for a farmer. That could also be a lot of other things. It could help them with their new technologies that they're investing in. It could help with some type of subscription maybe they want to run for a new program there. It's a really, really cool way in order for farmers to save money on their crop insurance premium there. And again, they're only making sure they're covered for the appropriate amount of acres that they actually farm. One thing I love to talk about is overlapping rows and technology. Climate FieldView does a really great job of capturing all of this information as well there. However, we all know that farmers might not have invested in all of their rows to shut off there. Just the other day, I was actually looking out at the soybean field that's right across from my house, and I was like, what the heck's going on there? And what actually happened was that they did not have any type of section control. So with those end and point rows there, there's just a whole slew of rows just overlapping on top of each other and on top of each other. We see this technology a lot with our farmers because maybe they haven't updated their technology yet, or they're utilizing some type of drill as well for their small grains or their soybeans. But knowing that and understanding that, we actually have to take out any type of overlap that's created as it pertains to data that, as it pertains to those planner monitor records. The loss adjustment manual calls out specifically that if we are using automated planner monitor records, we do have to take out that overlap by actually calculating the area inside that planted area there. For example, I worked with a farmer around that river bottom ground in central Illinois. That river bottom ground right there, he went back and forth in the field there. His Climate FieldView acres said 148. And I was on the phone with him and visiting with him and the crop insurance agent, and they're like, no, the crop insurance agent's like, no, it's 148. That's what Climate says. However, the farmer was actually able to verify that he drove back and forth along that river bottom ground right there, multiple passes. And so because of that, taking out those multiple passes, we got our crop insurance acres down to actually 141. So understanding that, knowing that, we have to account for any overlap as it pertains to that within the software. One of my favorite things to visit on, and something we're seeing a lot of growth in, is utilizing precision ag technology for splitting out irrigated and non-irrigated areas on an optional unit basis. We see a lot of popularity of this specifically in Nebraska, Kansas, South Carolina, and Delaware as well. So understanding that and knowing that, we see a lot of this technology being able to drive this growth as well there. But what the heck does it actually look like? It says that AIP approved precision monitored records can use to split it out. But what actually happens from a farmer's perspective is we can actually utilize this data in order to cookie cut out where that pivot is based on a seeding rate. Farmers generally tend to drop more seeds within an irrigated area of a field as compared to a non-irrigated area of a field. So being able to split that out is really, really important in order to help mitigate risks. I work with a group of farmers in South Carolina. This really helps mitigate their risk as it pertains to their non-irrigated crops and irrigated crops as well. We build up really, really high irrigated APHs because of utilizing this technology and splitting out those corners as well there. It's a really, really powerful tool for our farmers that utilize this technology. Additionally, as well, talking about Climate FieldView and utilizing this technology, Climate FieldView does a really powerful job for farmers to create these prescriptions. They have really great tools and easy to use technology in order to create these as well. A lot of my times on the farm, and Nick, he'll talk about the same thing as well, is we see farmers that are very easily utilizing this technology. Maybe they're sitting down and they're showing you how they make those scripts as well there. It's really, really easy to create these scripts utilizing Climate FieldView, even easier to get them out and go directly to the monitor as well there. And again, it's a really, really powerful tool that crop insurance is utilizing it for in order to split out those irrigated and non-irrigated areas. The last thing I want to talk about is leveraging this precision ag data for some FSA reporting as well there. It's really important to understand for farmers and agents that there may be instances where FSA acres and crop insurance acres don't actually match. Again, really, really important to understand that. Being able to use more accurate acres is really, really important. However, we've really helped our farmers in order to help them report at the FSA office there. We've created this beautiful RCIS insurance summary report in order for farmers and farmers to take to the FSA office to help them certify. We can go ahead and we can geolocate from our geospatial data that farmers planting information covers, the farm number, tract, and field, and overlay that with the crop practice type and the planted acres and plant date to help those farmers actually go report at the FSA office, thus helping them report and saving them a little bit of time when they really just need a lot of time in order this time of the year. The FSA deadline, the crop insurance deadline are really oftentimes at the busiest time where farmers are at. They want to be spraying, they want to be maybe they want to be replanting, maybe they want to be scouting there, or maybe they want to be spending time with their family. By leveraging this technology for crop insurance reporting, it's going to free up a little bit of time for them as well. That's all I've got on acreage reporting. Nick's going to go ahead and talk about claims and production and utilizing it for precision ag. Nick?
Thank you, Cameron. One of the things I want to mention as we get started here is you can do acreage by itself, but in order to do production and utilize precision ag with that for claims and production reporting is you have to do acreage as well. So you just can't do production by itself to get started. You have to do the acreage reporting piece to go through that. We're going to talk about some of the benefits, some of the experiences that I've seen with claims and production reporting and precision ag, and how that all relates and makes everyone's life quite a bit easier. The first thing I'm going to call out is that RMA does have some requirements in order to use your production. Is you must have your combine calibrated to manufacturer's specifications. This is once per year, per crop, per combine. So for example, and the biggest thing from that is if you have two combines, you need to have those calibrated to manufacturer specifications to that 3% tolerance. And what does manufacturer specs mean? I'll use, for example, like a John Deere S-Series combine. They may have a moisture calibration needs to be done, a temperature calibration, a vibration calibration. Then they also want 5 to 7 different speeds changed at about less than 8,000 pound loads. So they really want to have that done to what the manufacturers say. One of the things I will talk about is if I have a grower that can't necessarily calibrate, they're generally not doing it to manufacturer specs. So we really want to make sure that we're able to get all of that done and properly calibrated to that manufacturer specs. And that's in most of the manuals and the user guides. But I'll reiterate it again, once per year, per crop, to manufacturer specs at the beginning of harvest. Beginning of harvest is something new that came out in 2020. Before there was really no rule what time you did through the year, but now it's at the beginning of harvest. There also is a note on this page. So if you are using like a John Deere, let's say S-Series combine that has active yield or has a self-calibrating monitor in there, the producer needs to capture a load or region and then also weigh that in their grain cart to do their calibration for that. You're not necessarily calibrating the machine, you're doing an actual verification of what the crop actually weighed. Once a producer has done that calibration, we need to have them fill it out on a calibration report. Here at RCIS, we have fillable ones that you can download. You can actually keep on your iPad. Maybe you have one in the grain cart with you, or maybe we have one you can actually print out or a hard copy, and you can fill it out as you go. But really, a few things we need to have: the policyholder name, the farm you're on, the crop, and then what is your scale type? So am I using a bin measure? Am I using a settlement sheet, or am I using a grain cart records, or do I have a scale on my operation? What am I using as my scale type? That's the biggest thing. 95% of my growers are using grain carts. We look at crop year, you need to have that on there. And also, what type of equipment do I utilize? In this example up here, we're using Precision Planting Yield Sense. And so it wants one load at 30,000 pounds to kick it off, under 30,000 pounds to kick it off to start. One thing I will say, if you have, let's say me and Cameron are farming together, we have separate policies, we can have one calibration report for both individuals for that. It's actually per combine as you go through it. Up at the top, you'll see type of calibration. You'll have a multi-point, a single point, or a self-calibrating. In this example, I have a single point calibration. On this first one I did on October 20th, you'll see that I have the actual weight is at 28,510 pounds. What my combine said was 26,610. I'm at a 6% difference there. So I need to recalibrate, and you should be able to show this for the adjuster or for as you go through this on that calibration to show, hey, I'm getting it more dialed in from that perspective. Came back and about 40 minutes later, I did another load. This one was at I did 27,000 pounds, 102 is what my settlement sheet said, but my harvest equipment said 26,740. I'm at 1.3% difference. That suffices as my calibration record. Now I am done for that crop. I do recommend doing spot checks throughout the year with your grain cart if you have one in your operation. If you have some producers that say, hey, I can't get calibrated, if you're a producer and say, I can't get calibrated, generally you might be doing too big of loads not to manufacture specs. I kind of recommend every 6 to 8 points of moisture, probably recalibrate at that point. And also if you see some drastic changes in temperature, maybe you start the year at 70 degrees and by the end you're at 40, it might be time to recalibrate at that point. But this is the most crucial part of the whole piece of this, being able to use it for those claims and production reporting pieces, this calibration report. A lot of times when we got to the farm, this is the piece that's missing the most. I do have some growers that come take a picture of this in their actual monitor, come and write it back on the form after harvest. I have some that keep it in the cab with them at all times. Some keep it in the grain cart tractor and keep all of that. The one thing you're logging here is the mass flow sensor for that yield calibration. And like I'll say again, just remember plus or minus 3% to manufacturer specs at the beginning of harvest per crop. So let's say we've done that. We have our plant maps. We have a calibration done. Now, what does that do for me? Well, if we have a harvest map, which I'll talk about here in a second, we can make the simplified claims process. So instead of having bin measurement, settlement sheets, feed records, or grain cart records, we could use your precision ag data in order to work those losses or potentially reviews that we have, and also help with production reporting. You know, I can talk about all the times I've been on farms where it's taken multiple days for adjusters to measure bins, and we've actually been able to use that precision ag data, let's say in a few hours from going through that. Or you have the old settlement sheets where you've gone the elevator and everything is captured together. You really want to be able to utilize your data from that. You have it on your iPad with you right there, and you know what you've made. So why go back to the file cabinets to find all the old settlement sheets or the feed records that are just marked in the barn every day to what you fed? Really streamlines that process. As a grower, it makes your life quite a bit easier to be able to find those records and utilize it. One thing I will say about kind of the grain cart thing too, in those lines, is if you're running a grain cart, you need to make sure everything goes through that grain cart. In order to use those records with Precision Ag, you have everything that goes through that combine. You can use your cart to get it calibrated. One thing else, this really helps with that irrigated, non-irrigated, keeping production separate for you. For example, like a grain cart record can't do that for you because you've harvested all together, but the combine can keep that separated for you. So there is some required documentation. This would replace your bin measurements, your settlement sheets, or feed records. First, we have to have a plant map. We need to show the date it was planted, how many acres were planted, and then we need to have the client farm field on there. So for example, this is Lewitt's Young Farm, and you can see what we have there. This is a FieldView map for population, our calibration report, and then we need to have a harvest map. And this harvest map is a little different. We must have a harvest map that tells us the date it was harvested, how many acres were harvested, the average moisture, and then the wet weight in pounds. One of the things with crop insurance, we necessarily don't care what FieldView has for a total yield or a total dry. We have to shrink that to RMA standards. And so that's why we look for the average moisture and then the wet weight in pounds that we have there as well. When that data comes in, we can help get all that calculated to RMA standards for the moisture reduction factor. Kind of switching gears here from the acreage side and the production side to, okay, I'm interested, how do I get connected? What are the steps? What do I need to do as a grower in order to connect with RCIS and FieldView? So the first thing is your agent would send you an email. You would actually click a link inside this email, and it'll take you to our connector, and it'll bring up a list of, I'll see here in a second, it'll actually bring up a list of vendors for you, and you'll be able to select Climate as one of those vendors. But once you click this link and you register your telematics, you'll see the option as Climate is one of the options. You'll see this green plus, and you also see a check mark or a minus. The first time you connect, you'll want to hit the green plus. And then from there, it'll actually take you into your login screen. So from here, I'm going to use my Climate username and password to log in. Once I hit log in, it's going to say, all right, what's the next steps? I have to allow RCIS to have access to my Climate FieldView data. So I have to allow that. So once I click the allow, that allows the data to streamline from Climate FieldView to RCIS. Once you know it's connected, you will see a connection successfully registered. If you went back to that link again, it would show you a blue checkbox to say, okay, this account is connected. data is flowing across. On your initial connection, it might take a little bit of time to download all that data that you have in there, but once it's done, it will streamline a lot faster for your agents to get that data once you have the initial download done. Very simple to do, very easy. Literally takes probably no more than 5 minutes to connect with RCIS and FieldView. So if you want to get started, what is some of the things that I would think about that I want to do, and what do I need to do if I'm a producer? First thing is contact your local RCIS agent. Say, hey, I'm interested in precision ag. I went to the partner day with Climate, FieldView, and RCIS, and this is something that I want to do. We can help you get all that worked out as well. Once you get signed up with your RCIS agent, they can send you a telematics link to connect. That's the process I just went through there. Click the link, go through all the steps to allow that partnership to connect, then data can flow across. Cameron touched on this just a little bit ago, saying over the irrigation boundaries. If you want to be able to split irrigated and non-irrigated, we need to have those irrigation boundaries to be able to utilize that we're going to have going forward. For acreage reporting or production reporting, we know exactly where that circle is on the earth. So when data comes in, it clips it into that for us right away. Kind of a few best practices and housekeeping things I'll talk about. We really recommend having a client farm field structure set up in FieldView. I know a lot of growers just kind of have one name for everything, or it's Lewitt 1.1 or Lewitt 1.2. Sometimes it's nice to have a name there, but when that data flows over to us at RCIS, we don't care what you call it. We're going to put it on Earth to where it actually goes with longitude and latitude. So you may call it DATS 40, but it's actually Young's. We'll know where it goes in Earth based on that, even if you capture it in the wrong name. So we can clean up a lot of that data for you if you had some issues. However, this naming structure could help during acreage reporting and loss time. If you know you have, let's say, you can tell the adjuster, hey, this is Young's 40, or this is back 50. At least we have some name that corresponds with that, kind of helps in that loss process. One of the things that we must have set up in the partnership between Climate and RCIS is we need to have field boundaries in FieldView. And that allows the data to come across. If we don't have field boundaries, that data just kind of stops right there and it doesn't bring that across. Doesn't have to be the most accurate field boundary, just to have some boundary attached to it. When it comes in, we'll pull the as applied data that's based on that field boundary, not where the field boundary actually is on that. So kind of the best practices I'll talk about here, kind of wrapping up, is first thing we want to do is get those field boundaries created within Climate FieldView. Got to have those for that data to flow across. Once we do that connection set up, then we get the boundaries created. Establish a naming structure that works for you. In Nebraska, I have a producer that utilizes numbers. The numbers work great. I know that it's 40. I know it's 15. I know what those fields are. We have a consistent name. The agents actually name those units in his on his producer report. So he knows exactly, hey, that's field 15. And we know in FieldView it's field 15, and go back and compare and make sure everything looks right there. The last thing I will say is number 3. If you have multiple devices, so I've ran this a few times this year out in the field, is I had 2 brothers and each one of them has an iPad, and they got out of sync. And so when that data was in Climate FieldView, it wasn't properly synced up there. So one iPad had partial data, one had all their stuff, but in the FieldView account, we had 75%, not all of it. And so we had to resync, rebuild some fields, and repull that data. So before you let your agent know, hey, I'm done planting, make sure everything looks good in the Climate FieldView app before you pull that data over. It would be a really helpful piece for that as well. Here is our contact information. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We can help you if you do have some questions after this. Maybe you went through this and said, hey, I really have some questions you didn't answer, or I'd like to learn something else about it. Please let us know. We're more than happy to help you learn the process and get you started on the way of using precision ag and crop insurance. So just some key takeaways. We really wanted to show how to connect with RCIS, which is a very simple process. Once that agent sends you that email, clicking the link and registering between RCIS and Climate FieldView. The benefits to reporting precision ag, Cameron talked a lot about them. Being able to use acres that we actually plant. You can see the APH increase over time as well. Then also being able to split that data for irrigated and non-irrigated, which is a huge benefit for a lot of producers that do multiple practices within the same field. Then also required documentations for claims and calibration. You'll hear us talk a lot about calibration at most of these presentations. It's the number one piece that gets missed. You know, we generally have the plant maps and the harvest maps, but we're missing that calibration form. And we know growers are calibrating every day, and some growers are calibrating every day. We know growers have the calibration done, they just don't have it documented. So really making sure that we keep that calibration document available for us for those claims or audits that we potentially could have down the road. And just the call to action is make sure you sign up with the RCIS agent, and then reach out to us if you have any questions that we can help you with. Andrew, do a little Q&A here.
Yeah, you bet. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for running through all that. And we've got some questions, but I dropped a note in the chat. If there are any more that you all, have for the people on the line, please drop them in. Like, we're going to go back to the main session after we do Q&A. I think we're going to kick that back off at 2:20. So if we get done before and you navigate back there, you got time for a bio break. But, first question, top ahead, what happens whenever I have my climate app open and I have what I'm reporting with RCIS and the acres don't match? What do we do there?
So the biggest thing is that's how it's designed to work. So Cameron kind of talked about removing overlap. Our plant maps necessarily won't always match what you bring into RCIS system because it's going to take that overlap out for you. We're actually going to use a area that's not covered twice. You can only cover the area once, even though in your climate app you can cover an area multiple times. For example, I've seen a situation where I was working on one today where a field uploaded twice, the acres were a little higher. When it came in, it was corrected from that. And Cameron had his example for where he had 141 versus climate had 148, and that's working as designed. So we want to make sure that you understand that it doesn't necessarily have to match. There's some overlap being removed because RMA requires us to take that overlap out for you.
RCIS and really any AIP that does precision ag can't assume that every farmer has invested in row shutoff. That's one thing we really can't assume, or we can't assume that farmers aren't utilizing drills as well there. And we see drills on pretty much every single crop that we do precision ag with as well there. Farmers are utilizing all of this new technology, but we want to make sure that we can get the most accurate acres as possible, even if they aren't leveraging row shutoff or section control for their drills.
Awesome. So, honestly, acres not matching isn't a bad thing. If anything, it could be considered a good thing because you're getting the true assessment taking off overlap.
Correct. It's going to be the most accurate acres that we can come up with from that standpoint.
Very good. Good. Can you run through again the requirements for production reporting and acreage reporting?
So for acreage reporting, there's really no requirements. It's the biggest thing I will say is just make sure you capture data. We can't make data magically appear that's not captured, right? And also make sure that we have that as applied data. For production, there's a little bit more difference there. We got to have that calibration report done. So we need to have that calibration. I'll say it again because I say it all the time. Once per year per crop to manufacturer specifications to plus or minus 3%. At the beginning of harvest is the newest piece of that. And that's the one piece we really need to have for the harvest piece. And then also a map that shows wet weight and average moisture.
On the acreage reporting side, again, we do have to leverage that technology through that monitor, that GPS display, GPS receiver, and that GPS satellite subscription as well there. We need to be able to know geospatially where that data is specifically. And now those components from the planning side also do need to carry over to the harvest side as well there on that.
Very good. Very good. Can you, unpack that irrigated and non-irrigated reporting split? Because I grew up in East Central Missouri, so corn and bean worlds, not much irrigation, at least in my neck of the woods.
So RMA, I believe in 2012, made that allow you can be able to split irrigated and non-irrigated. If you don't use precision ag technology, you have to have a discernible break around your fields. You actually have to go. Most people go down and mow a pass between the operation around acreage reporting timeline, right, to have that done per RMA. But they can actually use that precision ag data to say, I don't have to have that discernible break. I have a map that can show that change in population between irrigated and non-irrigated where I change my rate. And that suffices as a discernible break. The huge part to that is at production time, right? Now I can actually use my precision ag to keep data separated. Otherwise, I have to harvest the dryland corner separate of the irrigated area. So it's a huge time savings for those producers out in the field that do have the irrigated and non-irrigated situations.
One thing as well we really like to talk about here specifically is in that passage in the loss adjustment manual, it talks about splitting it out there if that is recommended by an ag expert. Now, what the heck does that mean? Recommendation by an ag expert? In eastern Nebraska, for example, a lot of producers are recommended by their agronomist, their extension agent, in order to split out, or excuse me, to variable rate their corn prescriptions. Maybe they're dropping a higher rate in the middle of the pivot there. They're dropping lower rates on the corners there. However, on the soybeans, maybe they're using a drill, or maybe their agronomist actually recommends that they don't actually go and split out that or drop a lower population in the corners there. We can actually use that same prescription from corn and translate that to soybeans as well. In my specific neck of the woods in Delaware, we do that a lot. We use the corn prescription, and then we'll actually use it to split out the wheat if they choose to turn that pivot on, and then the soybeans as well there.
Awesome. Yeah, and shameless plug in on climate.com, but we do have scripting capabilities, for, corn and beans, for crop protection and fertility. But we had a recent advancement this past summer in 2022, where we made the ability for growers or those trusted agronomic advisors to take those field health images and generate prescriptions based on that field health image. And we've seen great use cases coming out of those for people doing it on irrigation, because usually those corners, show up differently. So it's easy to discern those areas and generate that script.
And we do have some growers doing that. I would say they are utilizing that, not just the technology on the script breaking from the harvest stuff, but doing some of that imagery stuff as well there. So our growers are really leveraging that technology. It's a really cool application then, and then they're using the downstream effects of that for crop insurance as well.
And the one thing I will say about a FieldView, and we need to get those shapes in there if you send them over for us, it's very simple in FieldView to get them out. You just go to the prescriptions tab and you can export it out as a generic file shape. We can take that right into our RCIS system so we know where that boundary is. So it's super simple to get those if you're a producer to your agent and utilize them. It's very, very easy.
Awesome. Great. So, this one might be a little bit of a curveball, but it's pretty common on ag Twitter right now. But how do you all see all these recent severe weather events we've had in 2023, and anything that people that have been affected should be doing or can be doing for reporting?
I think from our precision ag perspective, we've seen a lot more adoption of precision ag, especially kind of as you've seen some drought conditions, especially around Nebraska, and being able to keep those discernible breaks and being able to use precision ag that they have set up. So, that's one big benefit, because before they maybe never thought about keeping those separate, and now they are keeping them separate with that irrigated, non-irrigated.
Additionally on that as well, when we do see heavy rains or we do have replant in some specific areas, we have agents that are going and utilizing precision ag data, completing that acreage report, and then our adjusters can get to those claims, those replant claims faster, and they can able to verify with the planting information without that farmer going to that FS or the FSA to get that 578. We can go ahead, we can verify those acres, we can verify those replant acres before that farmer gets to the FSA, and really help with the claims process on that side as well there by leveraging their technology from climate.
Yeah. Awesome. For example, if you're a grower and you have a replant scenario, you'd print the original map out and then the replant map, and then you can utilize that for your claim situation.
Yeah, very good. So, another thing in here, and I love the slide that you all had that had the, the Gen 3 2020 and the FieldView drive in there. But, just thinking about compatibility, and I know climate, we've got the ability to ingest data through APIs from, Operations Center or Class Telematics. We also have our drive and then our connection with the Precision Planning 2020. But are there any preferences or any, best practices for using the different types of data input opportunities?
Not really necessarily. We consider ourselves like colorblind. We don't necessarily where it comes from. We can pull data from about any source. We do have some other partnerships as well besides Climate FieldView where you can get data from, but we don't really have a preferred way. It's really whatever that grower utilizes in their operation, right? We don't want them to change something for us. We want to change it. We could adapt to them, right? And be able to utilize that.
Yeah, awesome. And that goes back to your, ease of use case that you talked through.
Yep.
And I really like your all's ability and the comment that you made about, farm hierarchy and structure. And it doesn't matter what you name it, because you all just look at where that field actually is on the map, which is.
Yes, So we really love that, Andrew. And we see that specifically a lot. So say, for example, I'm at the home place, and then I go over to Nick's field, for example, there, and I, as the operator, go ahead and I have a brain fart, and I go and I don't change my client farm and field in my 2020 there. We can actually geolocate, and we do see that a lot, especially as we have different operators with different skill levels in the industry across the nation as well there. So by seeing that and being able to adapt to that, we can really make sure that all the data is used and all the data is properly there, even if it can get a little messy. Do we encourage that? No, but we understand it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it where the growers captured everything in one client farm field, sent it over, and they wouldn't even know it was in one client farm field on the map because we can geospatially locate it where it should be. And we kind of underlay that to the RMA's county land units as well. So helps get that.
Awesome. I'm in the product marketing organization now, but I started, I was a seed rep, crop protection rep, and then I was a climate rep for 3 years. And I've seen those brain farts where, a guy goes out and he sprays, 5,000 acres in his shop's field boundary. But yeah, having that ability to map it out by the actual field that was applied is great. And it's that easy button that people need. So, guys, any other real world examples of how you've seen farmers use their data in a review situation?
Yeah, I mean, I have tons of examples being in this industry for this long with claims and being around that. I think about one where it took the adjuster like 3 days to measure all the bins for this larger grower, and we were able to work the claim in about 6 hours using precision ag the next year. So you kind of talk about some of those benefits. Really having that data available. We're not going to all the co-ops. Maybe I take grain to 4 different elevators. I got to find all the different settlement sheets from them, or maybe I commingle all my grain together in a grain bin. I can use precision ag to help me split that out. Don't recommend doing that. Make sure you still keep up with your farming practices as well. Precision ag can help you through a lot of that as well to make that happen. And I think from that standpoint, kind of talked about the claims, having the plant map for the replant and the regular map can help with that as well for those replant scenarios. Prevent plants, another great one. You can show the map where the planter actually went. You can show the water holes that are not planted and let the adjuster determine what acres are prevent plant from there. So there's a bunch of different methods you can utilize from that standpoint. Maybe you get pulled for a review and maybe you have to go back 3 years. Well, you have all that 3 years in your iPad. Do you have all those 3 years of your records in your file cabinet? It's one of the big things I would say as well.
I worked with an agent up in Wisconsin actually recently, and they had their climate FieldView data, and they've been using climate FieldView for a couple of years now, some of the script tools and some of the other things there. But they've never split out their irrigated, non-irrigated. They tried it last year. They couldn't really do it at the FSA. They went and they pulled a COI review last year because the agent was actually the farmer's daughter, pulled that, and they actually had to go back and label it all as irrigated due to what the FSA paperwork is. So this year we set it up properly by splitting out those irrigated, non-irrigated areas based on those scripts. We have all those maps actually printed as well there. So we're going to send the adjuster when it comes to that COI, this packet, and just say, hey, here's all the maps. Here's the proof of this as well there. So we're going to speed up the COI process and the review of those acres. In addition to that, we're actually going to make sure that they're being more properly covered as it pertains to mitigating the risk from an irrigated, non-irrigated area perspective.
Awesome. So, this will be the last call for questions, but, guys, if there are any other thoughts that you want to leave the group with before we go back to the main session, we'll have a little bit of a break before we start the Q&A. So any last thoughts?
No,
Yes.
I just want to thank you all for taking the time to attend today, and also thank Climate FieldView for having us as one of their partners. They are one of our most valuable partners that we have here with RCIS and Precision Ag Precision Ag Services. That really helps us out.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys for, coming in. This was enlightening. I can easily say that. And the Q&A was, thanks for being frank and having direct answers. But for everybody that was on the call, appreciate you joining this breakout session.